Welcome back to GH Updates, your go-to spot for all the drama, revelations, and explosive secrets from General Hospital. Buckle up, because the episode airing on Monday, June 2nd, 2025, is nothing short of a seismic shakeup in Port Charles. Let's break it all down. General Hospital will reveal as the custody battle between Michael and Willow raged on, plunging Port Charles into a legal maelstrom of tension. Media scrutiny and deep-lied personal betrayals. The courtroom found itself at the center of an even more dramatic upheaval, one that no one, not even the most seasoned observers of General Hospital drama, could have anticipated. In the middle of a searing cross-examination by Rick Lansing, Sasha, who had been trying to hold her composure on the witness stand, suddenly gasped in pain and clutched her stomach. The courtroom fell into stunned silences. It became evident she was in labor. Gasps rippled through the gallery. The judge attempted to regain order, but it was too late. Sasha was doubled over, the contractions undeniable. And that chaos was unfolding live right in front of Port Charles's most powerful citizens. Carly immediately sprang into action, rushing to Sasha's side with calm authority, while Jason, ever the protector, moved to clear space and get medical help. But time wasn't on their side. Within minutes, right there in the courthouse, surrounded by shock attorneys, reporters, and rivals, Sasha delivered a baby girl. Through tears of sex, Houston, and triumph, she named her daughter Daisy. The birth sent shockwaves through the-town, not merely because of the unprecedented nature of the event, but because of what followed. As the baby was wrapped in a spare hospital blanket brought by a paramedic and Sasha held her close for the first time, she looked directly at Michael, her voice raw and trembling, and declared that he was Daisy's father. The gallery erupted into a frenzy of whispers and gasps. Their revelation shattered the private agreement she and Michael had quietly maintained for months, an agreement forged out of fear, regret, and mutual respect, wherein Michael had consented to remain distant from that child's life to avoid complicating things further. But now, with Sasha's emotional confession hanging in the air and the fragile, breathing reality of Daisy before them, that promised to sink under the weight of truth. Michael, already emotionally torn from relentless legal war with Willow, Andrew, Overway, and Amelia, found himself overwhelmed by the flood of paternal instinct. The moment he saw Daisy in Sasha's arms, something shifted inside him. The walls he had carefully erected to maintain emotional distance crumbled. All he could see was a future, however uncertain, with Sasha and their newborn daughter. Memories of their complicated past, their heartbreak, their brief moments of solace in one another, all came rushing back. And now he was no longer just the ex-lover or former confidant. He was a father. He stepped forward tentatively, cradling Daisy for the first time with trembling hands, his face betraying awe, vulnerability, and something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Yet, even as Michael envisioned a second chance at a family, another storm was quiet lingering. Cody, the man who had stood by Sasha through her grief, her withdrawal from drugs, and the long months of pregnancy, watched with growing unease. To everyone else, he was simply a loyal friend, perhaps something more. But in Cody's mind, a spiral of doubt and dread had already begun. He had been with Sasha during moments of confusion, nights blurred by shared trauma and unspoken need. He had seen her through her darkest hours, and in doing so had crossed boundaries that now haunted him. Deep down, he had wondered if Daisy could be his. But that wasn't the most damning part of his fear. What truly made the walls of his world tremble was a secret he and Sasha had only recently learned. They were blood relatives. Ethod started with a conversation in Montana during a casual visit with the extended family. A distant cousin flipping through an old family album had pointed out a connection that neither Cody nor Sasha had known existed. At first, it seemed like a strange, almost humorous coincidence. But as they looked deeper onto birth certificates, family trees, and timelines, it became terrifying. Gleichler. Sasha and Cody shared a great-grandparent. We're biologically second cousins. And suddenly, all of their history, those stolen kisses, the nights-off comfort that turned physical, became tainted by a truth neither of them could ignore. Cody tried to rationalize, to compartmentalize, to cling to the belief that everything would be fine if no one knew. But as he looked at Daisy with her pale skin and familiar eyes, the possibility that she was his own child became too great to ignore. Tormented by guilt and confusion, Cody quietly took matters into his own hands. One night, while visiting Sashan the baby at Carly's home under the pretense of helping out, he managed to take a small swab from Daisy's bottling, later from his own cheek. He sent samples in for a discreet paternity DNA test, hoping to silence the fear gnawing at his conscience. When their results came back, Cody's world imploded. The test confirmed what he had dreaded. He shared a genetic relationship with Daisy. Whether as a father or Morella through shared family lineage, the blood connection wasn't inevitable. His heart sank. Not only had he possibly fathered a child with Hiskazan, but now he was faced with an impossible choice. Tell the truth and risk destroying Sasha, Michael, and himself, or bury the knowledge forever. When Sasha confronted him about his distance and strange behavior, Cody would no longer hold back and hinted at the truth. He didn't say everything go trade. His fear paralyzed him, but his broken words and haunted expression were enough. Sasha's face drained of color as the implication sank in. She realized what he had done and worse, what it meant. In that instant, her world collapsed again after everything she had endured. Thales of Brando, the addiction, the hallucinations, the deaths. This felt like the cruelest twist of all. She had hoped that Daisy would be her redemption, her clean slate. Instead, Daisy had become the center of a nightmare laced with incest, betrayal, and lies. That night, without telling Ganyan, Sasha packed a small bag. She wrapped Daisy gently in a soft blanket, left a hastily scrawled note on the kitchen counter, and disappeared in its night. Not a word to Carly, not a goodbye to Michael. No forward dangerous. Just the silence of a mother in flight, trying to shield her child's from the explosion, waiting torrent. The next morning, Carly found the empty crib and the note. Jason, sensing danger beyond mere emotional overwhelm, began to investigate immediately. Michael, when told, was devastated and confused. Why would Sasha leave just as things were beginning to make sense? Why vanish now when they could have tread a game? He refused to believe she was fleeing from him. He suspected something deeper, something darker, and Cody, sitting alone on the bench outside General Hospital, couldn't even bring himself to speak. He had become the gatekeeper of a truth so explosive that revealing it would destroy lives. In a quiet coastal town hundreds of miles away, Sasha stood in the porch of a small rental house as sun rose over the ocean. She held Daisy tightly, breathing in the scent off her newborn skin, the only anchor she had left. Around them, the world was calm, the waves lapping at the shore in steady rhythm. But inside her, there wastened chaos. She didn't know how long she could stay hidden. She didn't know if truth would catch up to her. But in that moment, as Daisy opened her eyes, smiled, Sasha knew one thing with absolute clarity. She would do anything to protect her daughter, even if it meant living in the shadows forever. In a moment of overwhelming dread and desperation, Cody crossed a line he never imagined he would, tormented by guilt, buried questions, and an annoying sense of responsibility. He retrieved a small sample of his DNA, along with a subtle swab from Daisy's bottle. The night was cold, suffocating in its silence as he sealed the samples in an envelope and mailed them to a private lab. too terrified to involve anyone from General Hospital or even speak the words out loud. For days, he lived in a fog, unable to concentrate, haunted by what might discover. Swinging between hope and horror, he imagined every possible scenario tried. To convince himself the genetic link might be faint, distant enough to dismiss, to rationalize, to live with. But when the results finally arrived in a plain white envelope, everything inside him collapsed. A document was clinical, emotionless, but implications were catastrophic. Cody shared direct blood relations with Daisy. The data was irrefutable. Whether as a father or through their shared family tree, his blood ran in her veins. The paper trembled in his hands. The world around him seemed to narrow into a tunnel of noise and disbelief. The future he had timidly allowed himself to imagine. The future in which he, Sasha, and Daisy formed an unconventional but healing family unit now dissolved into ash. What had once felt like a redemptive connection had revealed itself to be an irrevocable mistake. One bound by biology and shadowed by taboo. Cody couldn't breathe. He couldn't speak. Shame crawled through his veins like poison. Every moment he'd held Daisy. Every touch, every time he assured Sasha that they could face whatever came together now, struck him as grotesque. He wasn't just wrong. He was dangerous to her, to the baby, to himself. He tried to keep his distance, but Sasha noticed the shift immediately. Cody became quiet. Withdrawn, his eyes no longer meeting hers, his hands switching with nervous energy. When she finally confronted him, he didn't confess outright. He couldn't, but he mumbled just enough. Phrase about testing, about not being sure, about things that can't be undone. Sasha stood frozen as his fragmented words crashed over her, and it didn't take more than a few seconds for the truth to hit her like a thunderclap. She understood, not just what he was trying to say, but everything it meant. Her heart stopped. She didn't need to see the results. She knew Cody knew the weight of his silence, and she recognized the unbearable truth he couldn't bring himself to utter. Cody, the man who had comforted her, stood by her, shared her grief, and fear was family. And now, maybe so was her child. An ancient choking fear clawed its way up from Sasha's gut. She couldn't think. She couldn't breathe. She looked down at Daisy. So small, so perfect, so innocent. And her body shook with a terror she hadn't felt since the days she sat alone in the hospital after Brendo's death. The past, her addiction, the breakdown, the hallucinations, the public meltdowns, none of it compared to this. If Michael ever found out that Daisy might not be his child, but the result of an unknowing yet horrifying mistake between cousins, it would destroy everything. It would destroy him, destroy his fragile faith in her, destroy any hope for a future, even one built from terrible of their past. Sasha had survived so much. She had buried lovers, battled drugs, lost babies, faced arrests, withstood public humiliation. But this would be her breaking point. She couldn't let it happen. Daisy was her last light, her last chance at something pure and unbroken. Sasha wasn't going to let Yon, Michael, Cody, or herself take a thought away. Not now. No never. That night, with her heart pounding and hands trembling, she packed a diaper bag with the essentials, wrapped Daisy in the softest blanket she could find, and crept through the quietholes of Carly's house. Every creak in floorboards felt like a scream. Every shadow looked like judgment. She didn't leave a note. She didn't call. She didn't even look back. The streetlight outside glowed faintly as she buckled Daisy into the baby carrier and slipped into the cold night. No one saw her leave. She didn't want them to. This wasn't escape. This was exile by morning. The household stirred and panic began to set in. Carly noticed the empty crib first, then the missing baby bag. And finally, the silence where Sasha's soft footsteps should have been. Her calls when soon answered. Her texts unread. Jason, arriving minutes later, took one look at Carly's face and knew something was wrong. He scanned the house, asked questions, but found no trace. Sasha had vanished, and Jason, sharp as ever since this wasn't a flight driven by shame or panic. This was strategy. This was Sasha protecting someone. She had left not back she was scared of scandal, but back she was hiding a truth that could destroy lives. Michael arrived shortly after and was hit by the news like a freight train. His arms, which had only held Daisy for mere hours, suddenly felt empty and listless. He paced, trying to make sense of it, demanding answers from Cody, from Jason, from anyone. But Cody said nothing. He stood silently, shoulders heavy, eyes filled with a guilt so thick it suffocated the air around him. Michael didn't understand. Not fully, not yet. But he would, and when he did, everything would change. Meanwhile, Willow, deep in her own fury over Michael's betrayal and her legal struggles to keep custody of their children, remained unaware of the storm building behind the scenes. She still saw Michael as selfish, disloyal, fixated on Sasha. What? She didn't see waste the crushing weight he now carried, the daughter he had just lost, and that fragile truth unraveling at these seams. Hundreds of miles away, in a coastal town wrapped in morning fog, Sasha held Daisy close as they looked out over the waves. The rhythmic crash of water against the rocks was the only sound. The sun had not yet risen, and the silence was both comforting and suffocating. Sasha didn't know how long they would stay here. She didn't know what came next. But in this moment, Daisy was safe, and that was all that mattered. Sasha had always dreamed of a new beginning. And maybe, just maybe, this was not the one she had imagined, but only one left untouched by ruin. Back in Port Charles, as the courtrooms recovered from the shock of Sasha's sudden disappearance with her newborn, Rick Lansing wasted no time capitalizing on the chaos. Like a predator circling a wounded adversary, Rick used the opportunity to launch a relentless verbal assault on Michael's credibility as a father. In his composed yet venomous tone, Rick painted a picture for the court of a man so emotionally unstable, so entangled in a web of betrayal and secrets that even the mother of his child had chosen to flee rather than face a future with him. He pointed to Sasha's disappearance as evidence that Michael was a destabilizing force, unfit to maintain primary custody of Way and Amelia. He implied that Sasha's actions weren't simply a result of postpartum fear or anxiety, but a calculated escape from Eamon who brought only disruption and pain. The implications landed like a thunderclap. Every juror, every spectator, even the judge felt the shift in the room. Whispers buzzed like bees in the gallery. Rick had reframed Sasha's vanishing act as a damning indictment of Michael's entire persona, even as Sasha's name became the persona of public sympathy and curiosity. Rick twisted the narrative to suit his agenda, suggesting that where Sasha fled, children should not remain. It was brutal and effective. Diane Miller, ever the fierce defender, stood up to counterattack. With her signature mix of poise and ferocity, she challenged Rick's assertions, calling them speculative and cruel. She pointed to Michael's long history, as a devoted father, the trauma he had endured in silence, and the grace with which he had accepted responsibility when others would have crumbled. Diane mended the court that Sasha had recently been through multiple traumas. Losing Brando, mental health crisis, a complicated pregnancy, and that postpartum behavior could not be weaponized in a custody battle. But despite her precision, the damage had already begun to spread. The media in Port Charles seized the story like wildfire. Headlines suggested instability, whispered theories of abandonment and scandal. Social media turned Sasha and Toa's mystery and Michael into a villain or a victim, depending On which feed Yo followed. Public opinion was splintering. The whispers were growing louder. And every passing hour without word from Sasha painted Michael in a more precarious light. Meanwhile, Sonny, who had been a steady anchor through Michael's crisis, began to feel an unfamiliar chill of dread. He'd supported Michael's decisions, thick and thin. But now he was plagued by a deeper concern, not about tactics or courtrooms, but about Sasha's actual safety. She had given birth under traumatic circumstances, vanished shed without medical follow-up, and taken a newborn into hiding. Something didn't feel right. This wasn't just a woman fling scandal. This was a woman running from something she couldn't salute. Sonny, with his instincts hunted be decades in the underworld, began making quiet inquiries. Without fanfare or public declarations, he activated a private search through trusted contacts, determined to find Sasha before Thessady's legal vultures tore Michael apart. Or worse, before Sasha's silence become permanent. Michael, for his part, had stopped believing. This was simply about shame or escape. As the hours turned to days and no word arrived, no phone call, no digital trace, he began to understand. This wasn't Sasha reacting to Rick's pressure or courtroom scrutiny. This was Sasha hiding something. Something dangerous, something deeper than guilt. He replayed her very interaction in his mind, looking for clues in her tone, her posture. The way she held Daisy. He thought of Cody's strange behavior, the way his eyes frost to meet Michael's during their last encounter. Something didn't add up, and it was terrifying. While Port Charles reeled, Sasha stood in a small coastal cabin many miles away, cradling Daisy in the quiet pre-dawn hours. The salty wind whispered through the cracks in the old window panes, and the distant roar off to ocean felt like the voice of Fates. She sat on a narrow wooden chair beside the fireplace, wrapped in a blanket, her daughter sleeping in her arms. She had run without looking back, without a plan, only a primal need to protect her child from the storm she knew was coming. The world she had fled from was full of expectations, manipulations, truths to tangled tunrevel without casualties. And she was tired. Tired off being pulled in every direction. Tired off pretending she could make peace between love and ruin. What a whirlwind of emotion, betrayal, and bombshell revelations. Monday's episode promises to change the lives of Port Charles residents forever. Will Michael recover from Sasha's revelation? Will Nina's secrets destroy her credibility? And is this really the end for Curtis and Portia? One thing's for sure, General Hospital is just getting started. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to GH Updates for your daily dose of drama. We'll be right here, bringing you every twist, every turn, and every unforgettable moment. Until next time, stay tuned, Port Charles fans.